Good evening. Welcome to Healthy Frontiers. My name is Dr. Bizzoni, and this show is dedicated to the education of our viewers. The topic for tonight is Lose Your Mummy Tummy. And my special guest is Julie Tupler. Julie is a registered nurse. She's a certified childbirth educator and fitness instructor. She's an executive director of her place called Spabebe. She's written 2 books. One is called Lose Your Mummy Tummy, with the preface by Elle McPherson, who was a client of hers, and Maternal Fitness. So she's well-versed, well-trained, and I want to welcome Julie to the show. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Julie, tell the audience a little bit about how you got into this. You're a registered nurse. You probably did a lot of nursing in your life, and now you've taken a specific direction.
Right.
What led you there?
Well, I haven't done a lot of nursing because very early on I was interested in fitness and wellness and preventative medicine. So I did vocational rehabilitation with back injuries when I lived in California, and discovered that many of my clients were pregnant women that had this back pain.
Right.
When I moved to New York, I was teaching fitness at a health club, and they said, "You're a nurse. You should teach this prenatal class." So when the women in the class found out I was a nurse, they started picking my brain about labor. So I became a childbirth educator to see what they were teaching, and realized that childbirth education comes at the end of pregnancy and only prepares your mind. Now I thought to myself, you wouldn't run in a race and not train. Why would a woman do the hardest thing she's ever going to do, labor, and not have that body and mind connection? So I started Maternal Fitness in 1990, and there was a need for it. And I found that during pregnancy, that the muscles that got stressed out the most were the abdominals and the pelvic floor. So and those are coincidentally, the muscles that are really important in pushing your baby out in labor.
Sure.
So I started working those muscle groups and developed what I called the Tupler technique.
Which we'll talk about a little bit later. But before we get to that, you talk about diastasis. Diastasis is a condition in a woman that develops during pregnancy. Why don't you, first of all, explain to the audience what diastasis is, and then tell me how you work with that specifically.
Well, diastasis, the word diastasis means separation.
Right.
So it's a separation, if we look at this picture here, of the outermost abdominal muscles. The outermost abdominal muscle is called the rectus abdominis. It's this muscle right here. It's joined together by a fibrous piece of tissue called the linea alba, which means white line. Sometimes during pregnancy it becomes the dark line, linea nigra. And it's connected with this. So you have connective tissue, and then you have the belly button, and then you have connective tissue. During pregnancy, the relaxin that hits the joints and the cartilage and everything also hits this connective tissue. So when the uterus goes forward forcefully on these outermost abdominal muscles, the muscles separate. And what actually happens is that connective tissue stretches sideways. Now, the function of these muscles is to support your back and to support your organs.
Sure.
When they separate, it then weakens the support system for the back, causing back problems, weakens the support system for the organs, causing the mummy tummy. So basically, what the mummy tummy is your organs being supported by this thin piece of connective tissue. So if the muscles were together, the organs would be supported much more. So when women see that little mummy tummy, what it is their unsupported organs. So basically, that's what a diastasis is. Now, you can also get a diastasis if you're not pregnant by doing abdominal exercises incorrectly. So some women start this pregnancy with the diastasis, and then with the growing uterus, it gets bigger. And with each subsequent pregnancy, if you don't bring the muscles back together, it gets bigger and bigger.
Right.
So to define diastasis, it's a forward, forceful movement on these outermost abdominal muscles.
Okay. So you then said there's a separation. Does it also create any separation to the bone structure there in the pubic area And is this checked by the
No.
OBGYNs routinely?
No, it's not. It's separate. The symphysis pubis separation is different than the muscle separation.
Okay.
And no, doctors do not routinely check it unless asked.
Okay.
And sometimes when they check it, I've known many times that it's been checked incorrectly, and it sometimes appears smaller than it is.
I understand. And how do women know if they have this problem?
Well, they know if they have this problem because they have like a little pooch.
Mm-hmm.
They have a little pooch because basically it's like a semi-hernia. Because
Right.
the organs are being supported by a thin piece of connective tissue. So the organs are kind of protruding
Right.
because there's not enough support. If the muscles were together, they would be
Right.
supported better.
Okay. And what are some of the dangers, some of the side effects of this?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, if these muscles are the support system for the back and they're
Right.
separated, then women are going to have low back pain. It puts them at risk for all sorts of
Commonly we see sciatica.
not
problems
necessarily not necessarily the sciatica, but the low back pain. The other thing is, the bigger the diastases, the thinner the piece of connective tissue. So what has happened sometimes to women is that connective tissue can tear away from the muscle. If that tears away, then you have a real live hernia because then the organs are coming through.
I understand.
So so it's called a ventral hernia.
Okay.
And a lot of times women go, ooh, what is with my belly button? It's protruding. It's like they have an umbilical hernia. Well, it's because there's a weakness here by the belly button. So when there's no support, it
pushes out.
It pushes out, yeah.
Okay. And what can pregnant women do to avoid this? I know it's going to get us into a whole other game right now.
How many hours do I have? What can they do to avoid this? Well, they can start working their abdominals with the Tupler technique early in the pregnancy.
Okay.
If they do that, they can either keep the diastases as small as possible, or they can even close it. I have a 50-year-old woman that I'm training now, pregnant with twins, started out with a 3-finger diastases. And what I mean by a 3-finger diastases is that the 3 fingers is the width of the connective tissue.
Correct.
Or it's 3 fingers between this muscle and that muscle. So we're measuring the distance between the two muscles. So she had 3 fingers, 3 inches above the belly button, at the belly button, and 3 inches below. And within 10 weeks, she totally closed it as she was getting bigger.
Okay.
And totally got rid of, she had scoliosis and started the pregnancy with back pain.
Right.
And within 10 weeks, the back pain, well, actually within a couple weeks, the back pain was gone.
Right.
But within 10 weeks, we had closed the diastases, made it smaller as she was getting bigger.
Okay. And so
if a woman does start it early in the pregnancy, that would be the best. Because
how early? When should they start?
Well, if they're feeling okay in the first trimester, they can start doing these exercises.
Okay.
And strong abdominals are so important for pregnant women to prevent the back problems, as we discussed, to help her push more effectively in labor, and the recovery. If she doesn't do abdominal work, then her muscles are going to be getting stretched out, and there's no muscle memory. And it's very hard to engage stretched out muscles, so her recovery is going to be a lot harder if she doesn't
Sure, that
work
makes
these
sense.
muscles during the pregnancy.
And I would even think that if we took this a step before pregnancy and people were exercising, keeping their abdominals nice and strong, and then they get pregnant, they're even more apt to have a better delivery, etc. Is that right?
Exactly. So if women were thinking about getting pregnant and they did this, it would be even better.
Even better, get started early.
Now, this separation, there's no statute of limitations here. If if a woman had her baby 35 years ago and did these exercises, she could close it.
Oh, great. Okay. So you know what we're going to do now? I think we should demonstrate the Tupler technique. First of all, just before we do that and bring a young lady up here to do it, just tell me, I know this is research. There's a lot of research from Columbia University. Tell me a little bit about this so people understand this Tupler technique before we then demo it. And we know that it's very effective and it's been researched that it's something that's not going to cause anybody any problems.
Right. Well, one of my trainers was a physical therapist, and she was just totally astonished that as women were getting bigger, the diastases was getting smaller. And she says, there's no research on exercise and diastases. She says, you should, contact like a physical therapist. So she said, Columbia University Department of Physical Therapy, because I think that you should have research on this because it's so important. So I did, and they did the research, and basically it was in March, I think, of 2001.
Right.
Then it's just been published recently in a physical therapy journal.
Right.
But basically what they did was they had the people at Maternal Fitness that did the Tupler technique.
Right.
Okay. And during our workshops, we check women the first class and the last class within the 6 weeks.
Right.
And then they had the group of women that didn't do any abdominal work, and it was crystal clear that the women that had done the exercises, the Tupler technique during pregnancy, had a significantly smaller diastases.
That's great. Okay, so now why don't we demonstrate the Tupler technique?
So before we demonstrate, I have
Sure.
to teach you the exercises.
Okay.
This muscle, the rectus abdominis, is the outermost muscle.
Correct.
You have 3 layers: outer, middle, and inner.
Sure.
So the middle layer are the obliques, and that attaches to the recti muscle. And then the innermost muscle is the transverse muscle. And when people talk about core, they're talking about transverse. Now, the transverse is connected to the recti. And the action of the transverse is the muscle that we use in breathing, coughing, going to the bathroom.
Sure.
It's sort of like a corset. It comes all the way around.
Correct.
And because the transverse is connected to the recti, when you exhale, because this is the muscle when you breathe that goes forwards and backwards, right? Every time you bring the transverse back towards the spine, it brings the recti back with it, shortening it from the middle, making the diastases smaller. Conversely, if they're connected and the transverse goes forward, makes the recti longer and it makes the diastases bigger.
Sure.
Okay? Breathing, all right, is a forward movement, but it's a forward passive movement. A diastasis only gets bigger with a forward forceful movement, when you sneeze, when you cough,
Sure.
and such. So the foundation of what I teach is bringing the belly button to the spine, okay? Bringing the transverse to the spine.
Right.
All right?
Okay.
That is the key, because every time you bring it to the spine, you're shortening the recti from the middle, making the diastases smaller. Does that make sense?
Makes so much
All right?
sense. Sure.
So a couple of things that you need to know about transverse. It's very important to strengthen it in a seated position, because when people go in a back-lying position, it's hard for them to tell if it's in or if it's out. So really the missing link in all abdominal work is strengthening transverse seated with the exercises that I'm going to show you shortly, okay? And I think of this, when we do the exercises, we think about it like a sideways elevator with 6 floors, all right? The action being forwards and backwards. First floor, relaxed.
Right.
5th floor, you're thinking of bringing your belly button to the spine. And 6th floor, you're going out the back. It's sort of like an isometric movement, all right? So we're going to be doing these little exercises where we take a belly breath, expand to 1st, exhale to 5th, hold it there, and then we're going to hold it at 5th floor, and then we're going to do some little squeezes out the back.
Right.
That's one. The other one we're going to do, and normally we do 100 of these little contractions, but we don't really have the time to do that here today.
Sure.
So we'll maybe just do 25 of them.
Okay.
So we'll do those 2 seated. And then I'm going to show how we do head lifts. There's a couple more things, though, that I need to tell you about the transverse. Number 1, gravity affects it, so we strengthen it seated. Number 2, we always start all of our exercises with a belly breath, because if we start it with a belly breath, it's in the right starting position to then be in on the work. Most people breathe in opposition. They inhale, they suck their abdominals in, then when they lift their head, it goes forward forcefully. Right. Number 3, the reason crunches don't work is because if the shoulders come off the floor, it's physically impossible to engage the transverse. So we only lift the head. If we want to make the exercise harder, then we bring the feet away from the buttocks.
Right.
By doing that, makes the small of the back come off the floor, and it's harder to use the abdominals.
Okay.
Number 3, or number 4, the direction we move. We never do crossovers like this, because that's it. Because the obliques are attached to this outermost muscle.
Sure.
All right.
Sure.
If I do this movement, it's a shearing movement, making the diastases bigger.
Right.
And last but not least, we don't lift the head like this, because again, it's impossible to hold the transverse in, and it's not functional. So when we lift the head, we bring the chin in and then lift the head, because in that way it's possible. When you have a diastasis and have that forward forceful movement of the uterus, a pregnant woman can't afford any more forward forceful movements. So she has to hold the transverse in on the work of everything that she does, right? When she sneezes, when she coughs. So if I were to get up out of this chair, what would I do? I would bring my belly button to the spine. Because if I didn't, if I went like this, it would go forward forcefully. So I'd bring it to the spine and move it myself over here. So, so we incorporate engaging the transverse on the work of everything that we do.
Right. Perfect.
Okay?
Perfect. Makes so much sense.
So now we're going to have Rachel come.
Okay, Rachel, you're on.
Now, one of the things that's important is to make sure that you get up and down correctly to protect your knees, to protect your abdominals, and to protect your back. So the first thing we do is what? Hold the transverse in, all right? And then we get down correctly. Perfect. Transverse is in, okay? Okay, so now she's seated in a cross-legged position. I have her seated in a cross-legged position, and normally we have them against the wall because if a muscle is weak, it has another muscle to help out, so we don't want her moving shoulders, we don't want her moving pelvis. So these exercises can also be done while driving or seated in a chair or against a wall. So I'm going to get down correctly also. My transverse is in, okay? Okay, so the first one we're going to do is the elevator. We put our hands on the belly, all right? And the reason the hands are always on the belly, so we know the direction it's going, because we always want it going backwards. So expand the belly to first. Exhale, bring the transverse all the way to the spine. Hold it there. Now count with me out loud for 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If she's counting, she's breathing. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Now hold it at fifth floor and let's go out the back to your outer spine, which is sixth floor. Little squeezes. 1, stay at fifth. Squeeze it. 2, stay at fifth. 3, stay at fifth. 4, stay at fifth. 5 more. And 6, stay at fifth. And 7, stay at fifth. 8, stay at fifth. 9, stay at fifth. And 10, expand to first. And exhale, bring the transverse all the way to the spine. Good. Expand the belly to first. And exhale, bring the transverse all the way to the spine. Good. So that was the first one called the elevator. And if any of the viewers wanted to download the Back's Basic sheet, they could go to the website and download that and see and get the exercises. Perfect. Yes. Okay, the second one we're going to do, here's her back, here's her transverse, first floor, fifth floor. We're going to go to third floor, which is halfway between. We're going to squeeze and hold this way. Now, in order for the exercise to be effective, she has to squeeze and hold the work. So she has to squeeze it here and then control the release. All right? Now, because the transverse goes behind the recti on top and below it on the bottom, we have to put one hand on the top and one hand on the bottom, because sometimes I was noticing that women were working the muscles incorrectly when they were doing this exercise, where the top would go forward forcefully and the bottom would go back. So we're going to visualize the ribs coming together, and one hand here so the top goes back, one hand here so the bottom goes back. We're going to, normally one set is 100, it takes 2.5 minutes, but because of time, we're just going to do 25 so that you can see a little demonstration. Okay. Now, when she does this, she has to count out loud so she's breathing. She has to keep her hands on her belly so she knows that the muscles are working in the right direction. And she should feel it in her back, okay? Because the transverse comes all the way around and inserts into the spine. All right, you ready? Okay. Expand the belly to first. Exhale, go to third floor. Visualize the ribs coming together. Now, squeeze and hold. 1, say it with me. 1, squeeze and hold. 2, squeeze and hold. 3, squeeze and hold. 4, squeeze and hold. 5, squeeze and hold. 6, squeeze and hold. 7, squeeze and hold. 8, squeeze and hold. 9, squeeze and hold. 10, 11, squeeze and hold. 12, and 13, squeeze and hold. 14, and 15, and 16, and 17, squeeze and hold. 18, and 19, squeeze and hold. 20, 5 more. 21, feeling this in your back. 22, I feel it too. 23, 24, you want to feel this? 25, 5 more. 26, feel that?
Sure do.
27, 28, squeeze and hold. 29, 30, let's end with the belly breath. Expand into my hand to first, and exhale all the way to the spine to fifth. Good. One more belly breath. Expand to first, and exhale to fifth. Good. Now, the progression with this exercise is it's third to fifth, okay, the first week. Then the next week we do fourth to fifth, making a little bit smaller. And then for the rest of her pregnancy until your child's how old? Forever, right? Until her child's at least 18. She needs to be doing these exercises. So it's third to fifth, fourth to fifth, and then we do fifth to sixth like we just did in the elevator. All right? And she's doing 5 sets of 100 a day the first 6 weeks, and then after that, then she does 10 sets, right?
Okay.
And she has to hold the transverse in on the work of everything that she does.
Right.
When
That's
she
how in
sneezes,
her daily
when she coughs,
lives.
right, how she incorporates it in her daily life.
Yep.
And do you want to make any comments on how it's affecting
How
you
long is
doing
she
it?
pregnant now? How many months?
About 5 months.
Okay, go ahead.
And I guess when I started the program, I definitely right away felt pain in my lumbar area and in my hips. And since I've been doing the exercises, I haven't had any back pain. I feel really good. My body feels strong.
Okay.
And they're easy to do.
And they're easy to do.
Yeah.
You can do
That's
them
what
anywhere.
it's all about. I mean,
And not only for the back pain, but preparing for labor. So every time she goes to the bathroom, you're thinking about me, right?
Yes.
Because,
Right.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, I definitely want to try to do natural labor. So, having more effective pushes is really important for me.
Right. That's one of the reasons Elle McPherson supported the program, because she pushed a baby out in 20 minutes.
Right.
So, and we have a lot of people that say that, because if you practice every time you go to the bathroom having a bowel movement, then it becomes second nature to use the abdominals. It's sort of like squeezing toothpaste out of a tube. The abdominals are back, pelvic floor is open and relaxed, all right? So, and you cannot teach somebody a new skill when they're in pain.
Right.
So it takes at least 21 days. So, so it makes a difference with
when
the
you
pushing.
get started early, always
And
the key,
it's
prepare.
really helpful if people want to have a natural or an unnatural, which is if they're planning on having epidural. Women have said that even with the epidural, because they've practiced, they close their eyes and they just see the image and they're able to do it.
Okay,
So
great.
whatever, and then of course the recovery is better. Now, one of the things that we do after 6 weeks, we add something. If you could hand me that stuff over there, the bottom. This stuff is good. Thank you. So, during pregnancy, we do what's called splinting, and the purpose of splinting is to mechanically approximate or bring the two halves of the muscle together.
Right.
So when we do the exercises, the starting position is closer together going back instead of further apart going back.
Makes sense.
So,
And what is this called? Is this
this
the
is
Tupler?
this is the Tupler wear,
Okay.
and this is what the women wear after the birth, and this is really important to wear this under the clothing, and I'll show later how to do that. This is the splint right here, and you put it on and it velcros, but it's really important because if women are wearing a front-loading baby carrier and they put all the weight of the baby carrier here, then they're pressing the muscles apart further.
Sure.
All right, so it's really important to
Keep
wear
them
that.
together.
So postpartum, they wear the splint and then hold the splint. All right, to
Keep it
pull
together.
those muscles together. Right, that is the express purpose of this. It's not a lumbar support or anything like that. The purpose is to just pull the two halves of the muscle together, because the muscles actually work better when they're
Right.
closer together, and it makes the exercises more effective if the muscles are closer together. So what we would do after 6 weeks is have her, so you want to hold the splint, and if she had a diastasis on the top, on the middle, on the bottom, and we're going to show you how to check for that,
Right.
then she would hold it on the top and pull and do the exercises like this, and then hold it in the middle and bring it down, and then in the bottom. So during pregnancy, we use the splint, just
Right.
holding it.
Okay.
We don't have them wear it.
Okay.
All right.
And then after pregnancy is when you're
And
going to
after
be using the
pregnancy,
splint.
right,
Okay.
right
Maybe you want
away.
to demonstrate that because we're running a little short on time here.
Okay.
Okay. Let's move to that.
You want me to? Okay, I'll show that.
Yep.
Okay, and then we'll show the back lying exercises, and then we can end with showing how to
Yeah.
do
I
the
just
head
want
lift.
the audience to
Okay,
see this.
so basically, what we're doing is, and this is under the clothes, you pull this here to pull the recti here, pull it here, and then it velcros here, and it velcros here. It's hard to see because I'm wearing white, okay, but then it's under the clothes.
So it's not seen. Women don't
No,
have
it's
to
not
worry
seen.
about it,
So you
wearing
could
it
do like
over their
this,
clothing.
right, like here.
Right. Here we go.
Like this. You wouldn't see it at all, okay?
Perfect. Okay. And
So
that'll
it's-
give that support. And how long do they wear that for?
As long as they have the diastases.
Good.
And what'll happen is the smaller the smaller the diastases, their waist will get smaller,
Yes.
and they might have to use a smaller splint.
Okay,
And they
that's
do
great.
measure it around the waist. So, okay. So
Good.
now, one of the other things that's important is to get up and down correctly. The first thing they
Right.
teach you in back school is getting up and down correctly. So please demonstrate how we get up and down. I'll take that.
I have it. Thanks.
Okay. So,
Onto the floor.
no, just get, you're in the seated position, so just come down. So lie down.
I'll lay down.
Yeah, lie down. And if she feels lightheaded or dizzy in a back-lying position, we have her roll down. So she held her transverse in, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you always get down by rolling to the side. The head touches, because if the head doesn't touch, the shoulders are off the floor and you can't engage transverse. So heels are close to the buttocks, okay? And then let me have that splint. Hold the transverse in as you lift up your butt. And I'm going to put this here, okay? And you splint in the back line. Okay, so now I'm going to come over here and we're going to show what the head lift looks like. Initially, in the classes, we have the partners lift the head, partners in the class, but she can do this, so she closes her eyes. And this is what a head lift looks like, what we do. Expand the belly to first. Exhale, bring just the transverse to the spine. Hold it at fifth. Visualize the zip. That puts the small of the back on the floor. Pull the splint. Brings the muscles close together. Visualize the ribs coming together. Chin in. Hold the transverse in and go out the back as you lift your head and say one. One. Stay at fifth as the head goes down. Perfect. All right. So her muscles went this way instead of going this way, which would, which would be a problem.
Sure.
So that's basically how
Perfect.
you do that.
Let's get her up.
Well, I wanted to show you how to check for a
Okay.
diastasis, though.
Oh, sure. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, while she was here, okay, I'm going to lift this up just a little bit. And what we do, because we're checking the distance of the muscles, okay, so we check at the belly button, okay, and with the splinting, if they don't have a diastasis, we still splint at the belly button as preventative. So I put my hands this way, okay, because if I put it this way, I'm not going to feel the two halves of the muscle.
Right.
Stick it in. Now, she does not hold the transverse in because that'll make it smaller, okay? And also, the higher she comes, the muscles come together. So when the muscles first start moving together, that's when I get a reading. So lift up your head, 2, and come down. She's 5 months, and come up, 2, and come down. See that little hole there? Would you want to put your finger in there and check?
Go right ahead.
And come up. Feel that?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's very little here. And come up, and 2. So she has 2 fingers. Now, in physical therapy terms, normally they say 3 fingers is a diastasis.
Right.
So, but 2 fingers is the start of a diastasis. All right, but she's doing her exercises now. How does she get up? Without lifting her head, she holds the transverse in, rolls to the side, now uses her arms to get her up.
Perfect. Great. That was terrific.
Thank you.
You were great. Julie, that was great. Loved you having on your show. That was
Thank
so
you so
interesting,
much.
so educational. I want people to understand that if they want any information, Julie has some great CDs, DVDs, and as we said, the 2 books, the one prefaced by Elle McPherson. And if they have any questions for Julie, I know she said she'd answer any questions via email on her website, which will be posted at the end of the show. And we want to thank you for being so attentive, and hope you learned a lot. And we'll see Julie again sometime.
Thanks.
Great. Thanks for being here, Julie. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
Okay.